of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisance unto him. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So we've got mandala there, fantastic. Okay, we are looking at chapter 5. This is entitled as Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. I guess you can all hear me okay, right?
Yes, Maharaj.
Good. We're going to see what we can do to try to finish this chapter. Last week we covered a few verses and we went over 18, 19, and 20, and we called that segment Equal Vision. Okay, so now we're at the pleasure within, and we're going to go from 21 hopefully to 29. Is everybody on board?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay, great. So I'll just start off with 21. Okay, you'll be very pleased with the last verses of this chapter because it's all about happiness, and it really moves everyone away from depression. In fact, in general, the Bhagavad Gita is a very uplifting treatise from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, so here we are, 21. Such a liberated person is not attracted to material sense pleasure, but is always in trance, enjoying the pleasure within. In this way, the self-realized person enjoys unlimited happiness, for he concentrates on the Supreme. Good. So I think what you're going to find with these slew of verses in this little segment that we're going to go through today, some key words, Sanskrit words that I think you should just jot down that will stay with you for your life. And they're very meaningful. Like, say what's a very prevalent theme here in this particular verse here. It's about pleasure. It's about enjoyment, about unhappiness. Sukham. Sukham is the word you might take note of, happiness. And it was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he had many followers, he had a flock, and there was one particular lady, and she was known to be somewhat depressed, and they called her Dukhi. Dukhi means one who's in distress always. When she met with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his followers, her whole life kind of turned around. It spun around in her favor, and they called her Sukhi from that time on. So from Dukhi, she went to Sukhi. How do you like that? Okay. So it is, let's take a particular note of the first two words there in the Sanskrit, Bhaya Sparshishu. This Sparshishu is going to come up again in the next verse. It talks about sense pleasure, and it is something that we shun, we shun. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada also talks about Yamunacharya. Yamunacharya was one of our great teachers in our lineage. And since he found superior bhakti yoga, whenever he thinks, whenever it crosses his mind about sense pleasure, he curls his lips and he spits at the thought. So, that was the way he reacted or responded to material sense gratification. So now we'll go to 22. This is a verse that a lot of devotees like to memorize. It's very relevant to them because it very clearly, let's say, outlines what is sense pleasure all about. So here it is. It's put in a nutshell. I'll read this one too. An intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery, which are due to contact with the material senses. O son of Kunti, such pleasures have a beginning and an end, and so the wise person does not delight in them. So you're talking about intelligent persons. They equate sensual pleasures to sources of misery. And why? Because pleasures to be experienced in this world have a beginning and an end. It's temporal. So therefore they are wise. And it's their, let's say, observation and deliberation that, if you're going to put yourself in a happy state, it should be consistent, constant. It shouldn't be interrupted and broken up. I think most of us will agree with that. So this word's sangsparshaja, okay? The third word there in that verse, it's related to the verse we just came from, 21, sparshishu, material sense pleasure. But in ISKCON we say sense gratification. And I always like to say it like Dracula says. Sense gratification is what everyone is aspiring for. And most people are sold on this mode of life as the optimum way of existing. But those who are wise have analyzed it all very differently. They have a different prognosis. And they say prognosis negative. Not worth getting into, Anyways, we say experience it for yourself. You can try it out, but you'll be kind of disappointed in the end. Okay, I think we can move to 23, and we can ask our new visitor to our group here, Nitai Priya. Would you like to deliver 23 to us, the line?
Sure. Thank you, Maharaj. Before giving up this present body, if one is able to tolerate the urges of the material senses and check the force of desire and anger, he is well situated and is happy in this world.
Good. Thank you very much. And again, the word comes up, sukham, in this verse. It's called sukhi, happy. Happiness is what we all aspire for. Anandamayo vyasat. That means everyone here in this world is looking for that. How do you get it? How do you achieve happiness? Because it's actually a very priceless thing, hard to achieve. Well, the process is that you have to engage in some tolerance. You have to toughen up, and you have to check certain things, such as just the forces of desire and anger. Anger comes up quite a bit here, by the way. Anger is that quality that clouds the intelligence. And a lot of people have identified that problems in relationships oftentimes have to do with anger. And therefore people have to take anger management courses to handle this issue. So to achieve happiness, one has to accept tolerance. One has to check the dark forces in order to enter into the light forces. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
To achieve the light forces, you have to challenge the dark forces. Okay, so Mandalaram, how about we have you do 24?
I would love to.
Okay. Do you want to do it this year? Okay, we're just waiting.
His microphone is off.
Geez,
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah.
One whose happiness is within, who is active and rejoices within, and whose aim is inward, is actually the perfect mystic. He is liberated in the Supreme, and ultimately he attains
The Supreme. Beautiful. Okay, so again, happiness appears there. Sukha, I hope you, Prabhus, may take a minute to just identify these words that are repeated again and again. And what really resonates with me in this verse is a few words. First of all, the word, at least in the English translation, we hear the word within. So happiness within, rejoices within. So, and who goes, the aim is to go inward. So there's an indication here that happiness is basically sourced from within and not without. And what do you all feel is the message out there in this sort of mundane world? Don't we always get the, let's say, propaganda that happiness is derived from the external? So Krishna says otherwise. Another word that I was wondering if you could take note of is nirvana. Nirvana comes up here at least 2 or 3 times in this chapter. Now, Nirvana is the name of a rock band. And I don't know the guy from Oregon who was, or Washington State that became famous to head up the group. I don't think he was so much in a nirvana state as we understand it. Nirvana. Now, I'm not a Sanskritist, but nirvana is a state of, let's say, being. It's a state of a form of bliss, Brahmananda. It's a state of being aloof and not feeling pain. But it's also not necessarily reaching the stage of relationship, love, and bhakti. Okay, I hope we can all understand that. So when we use words like Brahma Nirvanam and words like Brahma Bhuta, Brahma Bhuta is another word that comes up in the Bhagavad Gita quite a bit. Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma Nashochati Nakamchati. That refers to where there's no hankering and no lamentation. That a person has reached that stage means that person is sort of neutrally situated and is come to a beautiful level of spirituality where one doesn't have these strong feelings of highs and lows, but is very much sort of operating in the middle. And there's indifference, there's an equanimity. Those kind of terminologies would best suit that. So nirvana, in this case, Prabhupada translated as being liberated in the Supreme. That means, free from the gnawingness of sense gratification, right? Isn't it a kind of a gnawing that, that is in your heart? I need this, I need that, all these kind of things. So just take note of those words, okay? I think it bears lots of meanings. So now let's go to text 25, which again uses the word Brahma Nirvana. So would we ask Vaishnavi to read that one for us, please? 25.
Okay. Those who are beyond the dualities that arise from doubts, whose minds are engaged within, who are always busy working for the welfare of all living beings, and who are free from all sins, achieve liberation in the Supreme.
Okay, great. So there the word again appears, nirvana, the state of, being and being free from hankering and lamentation. And one thing that is expressed here by Krishna is that when you're busy in welfare activity for all living beings. Let's quickly look at the purport, because I want to highlight this a little bit, the second paragraph in the purport, because sometimes we hear devotees say that there's no need to get involved in charity work or philanthropic work. That's very substandard to bhakti. Okay, now that might be true, and Prabhupada makes a point of it. However, it is something that a lot of people have to partake in order to reach the higher stage. Most of us cannot make Hanuman leaps. We have to get involved in work that helps people. So looking at this particular second paragraph here, a person engaged only in ministering to the physical welfare of human society cannot factually help anyone. Temporary relief of the external body and the mind is not satisfactory. The real cause of one's difficulties in the hard struggle for life may be found in one's forgetfulness of his relationship with the Supreme Lord. When a man is fully conscious of his relationship with Krishna, he is actually a liberated soul, although he may be in the material tabernacle or the material body, right? So we have to refer to some another section of the Bhagavad Gita, which will help to make this what could be a little bit of a dilemma or contradiction, a seeming contradiction, a little more clear. So Krishna says, please always engage in my service and thinking of me. Chapter 12, about devotional service. Said if you can't do that, then to take up the next stage, take all the rules and regulations of bhakti yoga and execute them. That will bring you eventually to the ultimate stage of full meditation. Now, if you can't follow those rules and regulations, then work in such a way that you give the fruits of your labor to me, and or you just basically learn the life of detachment, keeping busy. So all these concessions are given in chapter 12 of Bhagavad Gita. So we don't need to actually shun this particular activity that people are doing charity work. We don't need to sneer at anybody who's doing that, because they're learning detachment, and they're definitely in the zone of sattva gun, mode of goodness. And when one is in the mode of goodness, it's really like a launching pad to get to the level of pureness. When you do charity work and you involve yourself in helping others, usually you find yourself very busy, very engaged, and that in itself is a great therapy, isn't it? Try it out. Any questions about that?
Maharaj, Hare Krishna, I have a question.
Sure.
Because of so many people are suffering and they don't have the chance to, stay in a better
Position.
in this world. When Prabhupada says here that a person that only look I have the Spanish version,
Yes.
but
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Prabhupada says only look for the wellness of the physical wellness of the human society.
Yes.
The people that suffer in this human society, probably they don't have the chance to think in bhakti if they are suffering. So
Right.
my question is, if it's any kind of balance between our desire of help the soul and our responsibility to help the people that suffer in the social environment that don't allow to seek about the spirituality. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say.
I believe I understand. I think you already answered your own question. We do have to search for balance. Prabhupada is basically saying that if you're just working at charitable endeavors on its own, then there is some shortcoming. Prabhupada is saying there has to be a spiritual component in your life, and then you will reap the greater fruits. So the idea is that, yes, do charity work, be philanthropic, help others, help your fellow human being, but also don't forget about your spirituality. I think that's what needs to be addressed. Okay, so you said balance, and that is the thing. I think, like, say, friends, I'll just remember when the tsunami came on some years ago. People had been deprived of their families, their house was knocked out of existence, and they'd lost everything. some devotees were going out well-intentioned. They came out there trying to distribute Bhagavad Gitas, and people were not so interested in that. They needed some food, you know. So if you can give food, and if it's prasadam, that's better than regular food. And then once you've made friends with them, then it's time to give them a level more, you know, another, you know, spread of something divine that they were missing in their life. So, you know, both should be there. Prabhupada was concerned for children. The whole Food for Life program started in Mayapur when he saw that poor children were fighting over the leftover prasadam on the banana leaves with the dogs. The dogs and the little children were fighting amongst themselves. And Prabhupada stood there from a distance and he saw what was going on and he was shedding tears. And then he started the Food for Life program saying, no one should go hungry within a 10-mile radius of any of our centers. So you can see that Prabhupada wanted people's welfare to be taken care of. He was into that, and he was at the same time it was prasadam the kids are getting. Now we have devotees, like I was in what's the name of that place? Ujjain, you know, where Bhaktimarga Swami established his mission for ISKCON. And I had a chance to see their operations, how chapatis are made and khichdi for the school children. Thousands of plates of prasadam are produced and distributed every day in some of the schools in that locality. And of course, it's prasadam, so everyone's getting satisfied. Their tummies are being, you know, let's say, gratified, and they're also getting prasadam. So if you can combine the two, that's the best, right? So I think that's where we need to strike the balance. Then we've got 26, let's go to the next, 26. And maybe we can ask Ananta Shesha, could you read that one for us?
Those who are free from anger and all material desires, who are self-realized, self-disciplined, and constantly endeavoring for perfection, are assured of liberation in the Supreme in the very near future.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for reading that. Prabhus, can you pick out a word there that we've been sort of underscoring that's popped up once again?
Brahma Nirvana.
Brahma Nirvana. Okay, great. So Prabhupada translates it as liberation in the Supreme. Good. Now, I'm not a Sanskritist, but Nirvana, Vana usually means forest, and Nir means no. So a place where there isn't a forest. Sounds pretty hellish, right? Kind of like a desert. So when we understand the Brahman realization platform, it is a little bit like that. You know? There is not a strong concept of imagery whatsoever. And so at least one has learned aloofness and not to hanker, not to lament, to just kind of take things as they come of their own accord. It's that kind of mindset that is there. Okay. So we just want to point that out to you. Brahma Nirvana, again, once again. So we're going to go to text 27 and 28. And is there somebody who hasn't had a chance? Agni, Prabhu, do you want to help us with that one?
Carolina can read also.
Who's that?
Carolina.
Okay, sure. Well, we have two more shlokas after that. I think we have.
Carolina, can you read that?
Yep, go ahead.
Yes, I'll do my best. Shutting out all external sense objects, keeping the eyes and vision concentrated between the two eyebrows, suspending the inward and outward breaths within the nostrils, and thus controlling the mind, senses, and intelligence, The transcendentalist, aiming at liberation, becomes free from desire, fear, and anger. One who is always in this state is certainly liberated.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you for reading that so nicely. So we're talking about some kind of, more of the mechanical approach to yoga. Basically, one is supposed to take some time in the day to kind of block yourself off from sense objects. And Krishna conscious take on that is to look at beautiful imagery of Krishna and, his devotees in Vrindavan, or perhaps images of Gaura and Nitai. And then you adorn your walls like that. An important practice in the yoga system is to kind of concentrate here. Have you ever noticed that when you're trying to think of something, people go like this? They put their thumb and their middle finger and they go, let me think now. You're trying to dredge your memory with something. It doesn't go naturally, it goes to that area. In yogic circles, they call that the third eye, and it is a point of concentration for sure. And in fact, we're going to be reading about yogic practices where one looks at the tip of the nose, meaning you half close your eyes, and in this way you'll become indifferent to all the kind of like the barrage of images that are around you. In a way, it's approaching cutting yourself off. So this is one thing that we can do as a practice, perhaps during japa period. I noted that if I look at the tip of my nose too long, which is quite tippy, by the way, and quite pointy, I think I would just probably faint after a few minutes. But just because I haven't practiced it well enough. Also breathing, something that devotees can take note of. Breathing, what Prabhupada calls chari now, blowing. That means inhale, exhale through the nose more so than through the mouth. You'll find an incredible regeneration in your whole body, your upper body, when you do that. Like say, for instance, I remember walking along the highway and, getting very tired from going a few hours at it. And then just getting a little bit feeling drained and fatigued and almost falling into the traffic. And then I realized, I have to do some pranayama. I have to get serious about breathing. And so even while walking, you can do some pranayama, breathing. And it just kind of like really revitalizes you, okay? And I think I've mentioned this before. If you're having several hours of meetings in a day, several consecutive days in a row, like as in GBC meetings, which are important, then you might get a little tired sometimes. So I would take the habit to walk out a little bit and just do a little pranayama outside. You can even do it quietly in the room. Breathe in, breathe out, etc. And then you feel like a new person. You feel reincarnated. Okay, ready to go and tackle another 2 or 3 hours. All right, so that's in japa. You might take this up as a practice. Use that nose a little bit more. We don't use it enough. Okay, so we'll go to 29, because that is actually our last verse, and it is a key verse. It's one that I would highly recommend, and one that Prabhupada calls the peace formula. Okay, so who hasn't read yet?
Agni Purana Das.
Okay, go for it, Mr. Fire.
A person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifice and austerities, the supreme lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attain peace from the pangs of material miseries.
Beautiful. Okay. Devotees had put out a flyer, which many temples put in there, like set up like a brochure and had it available for newcomers. So it is called the Peace Formula. And it's the derivative of that is this verse here. So the first line, Bhoktaram Yagya Tapasam, that means that, the first component of peace is that we have to recognize who's really enjoying in this world. The person enjoying in this world is the creator of this world. Bhoktaram, the one who's receiving all offerings, all yajnas, sacrifices, and penances and austerities. That is Krishna. So that is the first point to understand. It's not like most of us are trained to think me first. I think of the Frank Sinatra song "My Way," and or Sammy Davis Jr. used to sing, "Whether I'm right or whether I'm wrong, I got to be me. I got to be free." These crooner songs were, although they sounded kind of hip at the time, they're actually quite egotistically based, and it's all about me first. It's faulty, it's erroneous. So this first line helps us to understand that it's not me first. Do what you can, offer to the creator. And because I am part of the creator, because I'm what we say, part and parcel, Mamai Vangsho Jiva Loke, Jiva Buddha Sanatana, one of the verses that we looked at. Because I'm part, if I offer to the whole, the me who is part of the whole will also be a beneficiary. Or the example that is there, the root of the tree. If you offer, the root of the tree gets nourished, then all the leaves and branches, get benefited. So that's the first principle behind the peace formula. Number 2 is Sarva Loka Maheshwaram. Sarva means all, Loka, places, and Maheshwaram, that is owner, controller. So usually Maheshwara or Mahesh is a word attributed to Shiva, but in actuality, it's also applicable to Krishna. So Krishna is owning all the real estate. It's his. It's not ours. Nothing is ours, really. Everything's just borrowed, loaned, rented. What we have in this world is for us to use and to protect, and not to lord over, as Prabhupada uses the term, and not to be possessive of, but rather to be aloof from, but to protect. Okay, so that's the second part of the peace formula. And the third one is Suridam Sarva Bhutanam. Sarva, again, is all. Bhutanam refers to all living beings. Suridam means friend. As Supersoul, God is in the heart. Krishna is there as our observer, as our provider, our overseer, etc., etc. And in this way, he's our friend. And he agrees to travel with us. Even though we go through real tough times, he's always there. Times of elation and times of, let's say, grievances. He's always there. So a true friend is somebody who will always be there, not somebody who's there when it's to that other person's advantage. Okay, so therefore, this time around we're looking at a lot of words here that are Sanskrit oriented. So it's Shantim, peace. Peace comes from when you apply these 3 principles. So this is a good verse to learn. And we're going to ask you, Bruce, if you can memorize this one so that next week when we get together, you can either, show off and tell us what you know in Sanskrit or in English, either or both. So, this is a real crown to be put on the head of this particular chapter. As a crown jewel, you can say. That particular verse sums it up nicely. We went through what words here in our last few minutes, looking at the last segment of this chapter, which we call the pleasure within. Can anybody tell me some of the words that we're going to kind of take home with us? Just give me one at a time. Don't jump all at the same time.
Sukham,
I'm sorry?
Sukham, Sukham,
Yes,
Sukha.
yes. Sukham, yes, yes. Sukham, that is happiness. Good. Something else?
Dukham,
Can I get another word from someone else?
Brahma Nirvanam.
Pardon me?
Brahma Nirvanam.
Brahma Nirvana. Right. Beautiful. And that refers to, let's see, being with the Supreme, realized in the Supreme. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Anything else? Any other words?
Sangsparshaja?
Sangsparsaja. Yes, yes. That refers to the sense gratification and contact with the sense objects. And one thing I wanted to also point out to you, simple words that you may also put in your pocket is adi, beginning, and anta. You might be familiar with the Chaitanya Charitamrita. We have Adi Leela and we have Anta Leela. So here's Adi and Anta, beginning and end. And that's in reference to the sense gratification that we experience in this world. Okay, good. Does anybody have any questions? Yes. Yes.
Question, comment. I find sometimes as devotees, like you were saying in the example, Maharaj, of, sometimes you just need to do the needful. Preaching Bhagavad Gita isn't going to help somebody who's just been through an earthquake and, needs a blanket. But just going inwards at our own lives, and sometimes if we're feeling like we're having a hard time progressing, or we're meeting with certain obstacles and not finding that bhakti / peace within our hearts, Srila Prabhupada has kind of laid out the formula, as you say, like, if you're having a hard time with this, start here. If you're having a hard time with this, do this. And I feel sometimes as devotees, we kind of overlook or negate that because we are taught that watering the root is the best thing. So sometimes I feel like it can be a bit of a hit to our egos to think, oh, let me back this up. It doesn't mean that I can't be in bhakti and that I can't also try to worship the root, but also can I back this up a little bit because I'm hitting obstacles and look at some of these other things, like you said, concentrating the mind, between the eyebrows and focusing on breath, or doing some of these things that some devotees might view as being lesser. I was just wondering if you could maybe address that.
Well, I mean, most of the things that we do in this physical world, even devotionally, require physical attention. Like, say, for instance, you drive a car to go to the temple, and from a real advanced spiritual point of view, say, well, that's Maya. It's total Maya. Or why are you getting a job? Why aren't you living in the temple? You should just renounce everything. Or why are you going to that slaughterhouse, the university, et cetera, et cetera. You hear these things sometimes. So basically, we want to clarify that and say that we use many tools to get to Krishna. And Rupa Goswami's strongest philosophical message that he's given to us, I would say that devotees repeat again and again, real renunciation means is whatever you have as an acquisition, whatever you have as a talent, a skill, whatever, use it in Krishna's service. So we have to use our tongue, which is a material thing, instrument, the lips, and in order to chant Krishna's name. So in order to progress spiritually, we need physical objects and physical tools and physical means and ways to do things. We devotees also have to go through some training. Let's say if I want to be a real estate agent, and so I go for some training for that. And somebody might cast it as if you're selling super high bhakti person and say, this is total Maya. Well, it isn't, because you're using these skills, tested and proven training courses in his service. So I think that Krishna, but after all, it's Krishna's physical energy, that we're using. And some people really excel in various fields of wisdom, and like they're very just trained in technical details. But if it's used in the right spirit, then we call that bhakti. It has to just be utilized in the right spirit. So I think devotees have to have a healthy and mature approach to these things and not take things the wrong way and just discredit everything that's not totally related to Krishna directly. The remote world, or the physical world, is Krishna's world after all. And he accepts our fruits and our leaves and our veggies and the water in his service. He accepts all these things. So let us approach Krishna consciousness in a wholesome way. And let's not be, let's say, what do we call it, sectarian, and simply brush off and dismiss things so quickly. Let us, that are, of a physical nature. Like once we start doing that, we'll say, oh, this person is just a shudra, or this person is just this or that. We start to get very, materially calculating, and we just don't want to go there. It's not a healthy mindset. I hope that helps.
Yes, absolutely, Maharaj. Thank you. I found that kind of revisiting some of those when I've hit blockages or I'm struggling to kind of get to that inner heart, revisiting some of those previous steps that are recommended there has really helped. It really works. Like it really just backtracking a little bit and taking a few steps back and getting those kind of pre-bhakti foundations kind of set has helped elevate me back to a feeling of bhakti.
Yeah, just like it sometimes helps to tell people, okay, like even if you're like you're a pundit in ISKCON or something, it's good to just tell your audience something. Okay, sit there with your back straight and just take in a good breath, okay? So do that and breathe a few times. Inhale, exhale. Okay, how do you feel? Great. And then you're just more attentive so that you get the job done, because it's a Shravanam Kirtanam program, So these preliminaries, if you want, we can use that term, must be used, should be used, again, unless if you're Hanuman. We can only see Hanuman can make a big leap. He can make a jump. Everyone else is pretty much disqualified. Take the baby steps that are required to get to you where you need to go. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you. And do we have any other one or two questions we can ask? The drama crew is coming in now, so. Okay, if that's the case. So what we're going to do then is we're going to ask you to just try to concentrate on that last verse. If you want peace, there you got it, brother. It's right here. And the last slogan, just remember, 5:29. That's the verse, okay? So we're going to use, as a follow-up now, chapter 6. To me, it's chapter 6 very inspiring. And, what you've been talking about is kind of like a segue into this. It's called Jnana Yoga. Yoga means to link up with the Supreme. And Jnana means to meditate. So we're going to find out how to meditate a little bit better so that we can execute our Krishna consciousness in a better format. It gets a little bit mechanical, into the mechanics of it. It's so we'll be able to go there next week, okay? A week from now. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Maharaj. Maharaj.
Thank you, Maharaj.
I
Hare
think
Krishna.
Vishnu Priya,
Thank you, Hare Krishna Maharaj.
yeah, I think Vishnu Priya from Vancouver, she was trying to get on board as well. I saw her name pop up there, but I'll try to reach out to her. Okay, thank you. Haribol.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Maharaj. Good
Thank you,
luck.
Maharaj. Thank you so much. Bhaktimarga Maharaj ki.
Jai.
Srila
Jai.
Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Jai.
Jai.